My sister, 35 female, and her husband, 37 male, have been struggling with infertility since they got married 12 years ago. They've tried absolutely everything, from medical to spiritual, but unfortunately nothing works. Now that she's approaching late 30s, they're starting to look into adoption, but it's also been a slow going since their financial condition isn't exactly stable from multiple rounds of fertility treatments they went through. I can only imagine the struggle, and I sympathize with her, but the stress the situation is bringing her and her husband honestly puts a strain on our relationship. My husband and I, both 30, lost our best friends, Mason and his wife Kate, 2 weeks ago in a horrible car accident. They left behind their son Pete, who isn't even 2 yet. It was so sudden and so heart-wrenching. We're all grieving, which lowers out contact with a lot of people, including my sister and brother-in-law. Our main concern right now is ourselves and Pete, whose custody has come to us because we're both his godparents, actively engaged in Pete's life since his birth, and because Mason and Kate have neither left a will nor have immediate living relatives who can take him in. We've decided to adopt Pete as soon as we can stomach the process. My husband and I never planned on having kids, and even if we did, this is absolutely not the way we want to go about it. The situation is far from ideal, but we're starting the adoption process yesterday for Pete's safety if nothing else. We broke the news to our extended families and friends, letting them know that my husband and I won't be very available for a little longer because of this. I know my sister and brother-in-law will have something to say about this. I'm prepared for a few heated text messages or voicemails. However, I didn't expect them to turn up on our doorstep, crying about how unfair it is that we were given everything they wanted, and how we didn't deserve to be parents because we didn't go through what they had too. I've never seen my husband so angry before. He's usually very mild and gentle, but recent events have stretched our patience to the limits. We kicked them off of our porch, and I told my sister before she left that since our pain inconveniences her so much, I won't have her around me and my family at all anymore. I know she made a fuss about it, and now everyone has something to say to us. We turned off our phones, so we don't know which ones are cursing us and which one aren't. I know some did/are. My husband and I are both in pain and grieving, and we can't trust ourselves to be objective. Did we go too far? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Hey, adopted kid here. I can give you tips on how to be an a-hole if you want to be, because this story inflames me anyway. Your sister and her husband, much like my parents, tried everything else before even considering adoption. That makes their future kid their very last option. They clearly would rather have their own child. This attitude disgusts me personally, but whatever, I guess that's normal for society. Pete is your first option. You sacrificed the lifestyle you wanted to have for him. You chose his life before the future you envisioned, not as a last-ditch effort. Guaranteed you'll be a better parent. You will be the a-hole if you told her this, and honestly, I encourage it. This comment is beautiful and says everything I thought and felt reading this post. I hope you're not the a-hole, and I strongly advise some major distance from this deeply selfish, narcissistic behavior from your sister and brother-in-law. Not the a-hole. I'm sorry, but that's just disgusting behavior from your sister. You got everything you wanted? Your close friends died, and you have to go through an unexpected adoption for their son who is now orphaned. I know she's stressed, but that's just horrible what she said, honestly. At the moment, I was absolutely disgusted too. My husband was too, judging from his face. Like I said, I've never seen him look at anyone like that. It's like a completely different person. I'm afraid I must have looked just like him then too. It's really shocking when you find out your family has a bunch of victims and narcissists. A tragedy happened, but no. This is about them and their baby troubles. I haven't spoken to many of my family members since I was 18 to 24. I'm now in my mid-30s as well. It's not easy, but your life is better when you surround yourself with people who actually give a damn if you're hurting or not. Get angry, feel angry. You should be angry because what they're doing is making it about themselves when it has zero to do with them. I'm getting married in 2 weeks. Last week was my bachelor party and several of my friends attended, women and men. During the party, one of my female friends, let's call her Kelly, got very drunk and confessed to me that she's not happy that I'm getting married. and that she thinks my future wife is not a good match for me. She also confessed she's been in love with me since we were 21. Now we are 27. And that it hurt her feelings how I never realized and never did anything about it. Due to the fact that she was drunk, I completely ignored what she said and I was like, fine, okay, whatever, at that moment. I waited till she got sober to see if she'd say anything about this again. And 2 days after the party, she texted me and asked me if I thought about what she said. I told her to elaborate just to make sure she's talking about her confession. She was indeed talking about it, and I told her exactly what I thought. I told her I don't care what she thinks about me and my fiancé being a good match, and she's not the best judge of that since she claims to be in love with me. I also told her that I truly don't care about her feelings towards me and I don't know what she expected to achieve. She was shocked to see me responding like that, and she was like, "You don't need to be rude about this." I replied telling her that of course I'll be rude. She's trying to ruin my wedding by thinking confessing to me will change anything. Told her to come back to reality and realize she's not playing in a movie and her confession is embarrassing. And instead of letting it go and blaming it on the alcohol, she pushed it and expected to see whether she'd actually have succeeded. I told her at this point I don't care about her at all. That girl apparently exposed me to our friends. She didn't tell them the whole story, and I had to explain to everyone what she really said and expected. My friends kept insisting that I acted like an a-hole, and just because I'm getting married, that gives me no right to invalidate my friends' feelings towards me. Am I the a-hole? Edit. I also want to clarify one thing. Kelly has not been a good person towards my fiancé at all, especially during our first years together. She only fixed her attitude after I had several fights with her regarding boundaries. Due to her fixed attitude, I believed she changed truly. Now for the top comments. Not stay home. She's had 6 years to tell you how she feels and decided right before your wedding was the right time? Time to unfriend Kelly and go no contact. Also, she was mad he didn't notice she was in love with him and do something about it? Girl, if a boy doesn't notice you're in love with him, and then he falls in love with someone else, that means either A, he was never going to reciprocate your feelings no matter what, or B, you should have said something? Like back when it could have made a difference? As in, before his freaking bachelor party. You do not get to be mad at someone for not reading your mind. Not ever. You do get to be mad at someone for puking nonsense all over you and your relationship right before your wedding. Not stay home. Are you kidding me? How did this confession not result in you telling Kelly you have been in love with her as well but never revealed your true feelings, out of fear she would not reciprocate? Then you and Kelly fall into bed and you break off your impending nuptials. Oh, because that scenario is a BS bad storyline from a very crappy romance ever written and/or produced. Kelly sucks. She has no respect or care for you as a friend. A real friend would support you and keep their silly crush to themselves. A real friend would have told you of their feelings long before you were in a committed, loving relationship and heading towards marriage. And your friends back in Kelly suck also. Friend or not, we should not co-sign people's messed up behavior. You're not a-hole. I wish you and your fiancé a beautiful wedding and a long marriage filled with infinite love, laughter, and prosperity. This was a funny read. Thank you so much for the well wishes for the wedding. Genuinely confused as to why your friends thought that you needed to be nice to her in this situation. This isn't some time where you were both single and she was pouring her heart out. This was her attempting to blow up your wedding after being historically unkind to your fiancé. If you wanted to be with her, you would be with her. But if you're not, you're with your fiancé. Therefore, you were not invalidating her feelings. You were asserting yours. She was trying to invalidate your feelings and your wants by pulling this last-minute malarkey. You don't have to be rude. Shove off, girl. She disrespected you and your wife and inserted her drama during a time that is supposed to be exciting and blissful for you and your fiancé. What did she honestly expect to happen? Yeah, it sucks to watch someone you like be with someone else. But if you genuinely care for that person, you put on your big adult pants. Let it go, be happy for them, and move on to someone who is actually available. You try to give her an out by letting it go after the bachelor party, and she decided to escalate the situation. Now she's dragging your mutual friends into her mess? No. Rudeness is exactly what you need to get through this woman. Revoke her invite and go no contact. Not stay home. Just over 2 years ago, my wife cheated on me with a co-worker at her work's Christmas party out of town. She told me immediately the morning after, and to say I was devastated would be an understatement. This happened pretty much immediately prior to our country going into lockdown, so we were stuck together. I was in a bit of a daze at a time and just kind of went through the motions. I was angry and miserable, but also wanted to understand why she would do it. Hence, it made sense to work through it at a time, seeing as we were seemingly stuck together. To her credit, though, she did everything possible to make it right. She quit her job, cut off all contact with a coworker, offered to go to therapy/counseling, and even admitted to what she did publicly. I never asked her to do this, and her mother and sister are very close to her and were appalled. She became much more loving and considerate and even offered to let me sleep with someone else. I was actually upset with the suggestion, but she was only saying it out of desperation. Fast forward to now, 2 years later, and by all accounts things feel like they're back to normal again. At least for her. She's no longer moping around the house, stepping on eggshells in conversation, breaking down when anything regarding cheating happens. She started crying while we were watching a soap where a wife cheats on her husband. Unfortunately, I feel like this return to normalcy has reopened a wound. I think about that night more these days than I did during the previous 2 years. I don't know why, but I think that society returning to a bit of a pre-2020 state has made me feel like I've gone back in time to that evening. I can't stand to look at her anymore. Not in a she disgusts me way, but in more of a why are you still even here kind of way. I feel guilty for wanting to leave now after all the work she put in, even though logically I know I shouldn't. I feel like I'm the bad guy for wanting to end a marriage after the work she has put in. I know people will be able to easily say she made her bed, etc., but I'm still really struggling with the idea of leaving her for her sake. I don't hate her for it, but I don't think I love her anymore, and I know this will destroy her. Part of me wishes I was strong enough to have left when it happened. Anyone been in a similar situation or have any advice? Thanks in advance. Now for the top advice before reading the update. You can't help the way you feel. Her effort to make things right is completely admirable, but ultimately a relationship is two people and two sets of feelings. Staying for her sake helps no one. She will sense you are there for the wrong reasons and it will cause a brand new set of issues. If you don't love her, then leave. It will hurt in the beginning, but if you don't hate her, then you wouldn't want her to be deprived of love, and you deserve to be in a place where you trust and love fearlessly. Staying for the sake of never works in a good way. Be kind in a break, but don't stay for some misguided idea that you are a knight in shining armor. You will both survive and thrive. Thank you for your response. This has helped. And for what it's worth, calling it quits at this point doesn't mean that either of you have wasted the last 2 years. You've both clearly done a lot of work on yourselves, and that's great. Just because you're incompatible doesn't mean that you failed. You deserve to be happy. To Opie, I was cheated on right before the pandemic hit. I gave my now ex-wife a month to make things right, and she did the opposite. Almost 2.5 years later, her and her affair partner are still together. We also have 2 children together. I look back and wonder why she didn't give our 16-year relationship at least one chance to survive. But now I'm honestly glad. I have a fair custody arrangement. I'm a better dad. Have a wonderful girlfriend that has shown me everything about true intimacy and loyalty that my ex was not able to. Also, my ex is still a decent mother despite being a terrible wife. It is still incredibly painful at times, but I am reminded that our paths aren't always straight, and that my life is much better now than before. This is why cheating is a deal breaker for so many people. Getting past the betrayal is almost impossible, even if you try. And the breakup would be the consequence of her actions. It is not impossible, as a great many do it, but don't share it all in the internet. The problem is that she did the work to get through everything and get better, but he didn't. Unequal relationships don't last. What was he supposed to do in this scenario? She's the one who did a bad thing and needs to prove her remorse and that she's changed. Would you tell the guy who got beaten up and mugged that he should have done things differently? A lot of people find themselves in your situation. They don't immediately leave because they've been blindsided and everything is too much to process. But once they come to terms with the betrayal, they can no longer look past it. Don't see the last 2 years as wasted. If you had left that night, you may still have been suffering from the trauma of betrayal. You've had a chance to work through it, seen her remorse and fallen out of love with her organically. It will be difficult for her. She's done all the right things since she cheated, but reconciliation is never guaranteed. It will be better for her too for you to split before true resentment sets in. Thanks. I appreciate the response. Whilst I'm glad I try to make it work, I almost feel like I've led her on by staying. It's not logical, I know, but I'm glad to hear so many people validate me that I don't have to feel bad if I leave, even now years later.